There are two things firefighters dislike: the way things are, and change.
Sometimes traditional ways clash with the need for change.
That's where we come in.
Slicing through the noise with insights that matter.
Welcome to Igniting the Shift Within.
Your launch pad to revolutionize the way you think and work
and lead.
Welcome to another episode of Igniting the Shift Within. I'm David Dachinger, and today we're speaking with John M. Curd Jr. He's the fire chief at Riviera Beach Fire Rescue, and we're going to be talking about fire station design, how to incorporate firefighter health, safety, efficiency, and wellness into that design. And then Chief Curd is also going to share 3 tactical takeaways to enhance your health, performance, and leadership. Tell you a little bit about the chief. He began his career in 2002 in Riviera Beach and has served in various roles, including firefighter, driver engineer, captain, and most recently fire chief and emergency manager. Active in several organizations such as the Palm Beach County Fire Chiefs Association and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Chief Curd has dedicated over 23 years serving Riviera Beach, bringing valuable experience and commitment to the community. Chief, welcome to Igniting the Shift Within.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it, being able to come on and talk with you a little bit about what we're doing.
Well, thank you for that. And I had the opportunity to hear you speak about fire station design at the Florida Fire Chiefs Safety and Health Conference. And there really is a wellness component to all of it. So I want to make sure that we dive into that. Before we do, as kind of a way to open that conversation, what are some of the main health and wellness concerns that are facing firefighters today?
So, we took a broad look at all of the issues, right? It's not just any one thing or a group of things, but what we've been able to come up with is we've built the foundation of what we're doing on 3 pillars: mental health and wellness, physical health and wellness, and cancer reduction. So those are the main 3 elements that we focus in on. Obviously, within each one of those, there are various sub-elements. But if I had to sum it up, those seem to be right now the 3 biggest things that we're looking to address in our department, and hopefully it spreads to other departments throughout the nation.
And can you speak to that in terms of your organization? What have you done to address firefighter wellness?
Yeah, so we only have an hour, right? So I better get going here. So some of the things that we looked at doing is we realized we had a health and wellness issue early on when we had to shut down 50% of our stations because of mold and mildew. We had firefighters that had respiratory issues. We had firefighters that were hospitalized. And our stations were built in the late 60s, early 70s. They actually weren't built for air conditioning as it exists today. So air conditioning was added, but we had old jalousie windows, and just that combination of trying to make an older fire station meet our needs of today was quickly becoming an impossibility. So we set out to build new fire stations to make sure that we were focusing in on health and wellness. And during that time, we also had COVID come around, which taught us a lot about station living, how we were living, touch surfaces, cross-contamination, decontamination. So a lot of that was happening at the same time. But my former chief, as I was deputy chief, Reginald Duran, set me out on a mission to find what was the latest and greatest in the fire service as it related to station design, and really wanted to incorporate all of those elements to address the issues that I don't want to say have been ignored, because they haven't, but they've been ignored from a standpoint of our apparatus have grown in technology, and the changes are SCBAs, our bunker gear, our thermal, go down the list of all of our equipment. And really what we've seen as our fire stations have remained the same. Shy of horses and wagons, we build them the same way. There's, with not much thought and the health and wellness aspect of the design.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that the headquarters that I worked out of literally had been built in the day of the horse-drawn, apparatus, and was just converted over and built on and kind of, modified. But at a certain point, you probably can't incorporate some of these wellness measures into an old structure like that just wasn't designed like that in the first place. Is that what you found?
Well, that's what I had thought originally. I can tell you incorporating these features during a new build is optimal. The cost increase is not much because you're just really looking at the design of it. But then we realized when I was reached out to by other fire chiefs, so we're not building a new station, we're remodeling the station. Okay, great, let's take a look. And I drove out to where they were and took a look. And while there are some elements that are difficult to address during a remodel, many of the elements, especially what I consider the must-haves, right? Those are easily added into the remodel. It's an existing station that's not being remodeled or rebuilt. There are some very simple things that we can do to improve the environment that we're both working in and living in.
Gotcha. And so what were the must-haves that you came up with when you did all your research?
So, and I also want to preface a lot of this with we're in South Florida. So some of the things that you might need up in the Northwest or the Northeast could be a little bit different. But some of the things that I felt were a must-have was we talk about this hot zone concept, and we worked with an architect at the station design conference maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It was LeMay and Erickson at the time, and they were kind of talking about this hot zone concept where you actually have, just like we would, and how do we tie it to the fire service? You got the hot zone, you got the warm zone, and you got the cold zone, right? That's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at a hot zone, that's our dirty, contaminated area. We got a warm zone, that's a buffer, transition, or decontamination area. That leads us into our green zone, our safe zone. That's a must-have. Exhaust ventilation in the apparatus bay, must-have. Ice machines, bunker gear out of the apparatus bay, must have. Those are a couple workout equipment. Having your workout equipment in a clean zone or the green zone versus when I started, it was in the apparatus bay. The weights were in the bay and diesel exhaust on them, and you get it on your hands and sweat and wipe your face, and trucks are pulling in and out while you're working out. This is where we'll talk a little bit about the common sense. It just makes sense to pull these things out of that environment. Even something as simple as, and this is a very contentious topic, not having our firefighters wear their duty boots inside the station. I don't know of a firefighter today that walks inside their home when they get home with their station boots on. Why would you do it where you live at the firehouse? So some of those elements, and that's doesn't cost anything, right? But we can limit cross-contamination. The calls we run, the stuff we step in, stuff we get on our shoes, and why we're bringing that into our sleeping and eating areas, I have yet to understand. But those are 3 or 4 of the main elements that are the must-haves. Those right there attribute to probably 60 to 70% of what it is we're trying to accomplish in just those simple things.
Right. And how do you get buy-in when you're coming up with this list and you have this now, vision of what you want to design as a new fire station? Of course, that all adds up into dollars and time and, what all the effects that it's going to have, the ripple effects. How did you successfully get people on board in village government and the other people that need to be, stakeholders in this project? How did you get their enthusiasm and endorsement?
That's the magic, right? That's where the magic happens. We can have all of these great ideas, and if you don't have the buy-in, it doesn't work. One of the things I preach to my firefighters all the time is we invest in our community so we can gain community equity. Our firefighters, we are a customer service-based organization. And one of the things that we've been able to do is build a lot of equity within our community amongst our residents. The other things that you really need to work on is we have a city manager form of government. So we have a city council, and the city manager works for the city council, but ultimately the city manager runs the city, makes a lot of the executive decisions, day-to-day operations, educating them, explaining what's happening with statistics as it relates to firefighter cancer. In Florida, we have the cancer bill, explaining to them what this means, because for a lot of us in the fire service, and I'm all about what's happening in our state in Florida, but a lot of these are unfunded mandates, right? So now we have bills that come out where if you develop any one of these 20 different types of cancer, there is now, it's attributed to the work that you do. So it becomes a liability to the organization. And that's the way I have to explain it to my elected officials. So one of the biggest problems that I ran across was the quantifiables. So I was asked, how many firefighters are not going to commit suicide because of these new things you've put in? How many are not going to get cancer? How many are not going to become dependent on alcohol or drugs? I can't give you that number. It's an impossibility. I can't tell you how many firefighters won't get divorced as a result of what we're trying to do, but we are trying to do something. And we are very fortunate in Florida, and especially in my community. They're very supportive of their first responders, but you're going to have to get community buy-in, and you're going to have to educate those that are above you as it relates to what's happening in our industry and actually what some of the statistics are on firefighter deaths, suicides, cancer rates, all of those things.
Yeah, I love that you're touching on all that because I would imagine, someone in government or community wants to, know the hard facts, but some of these are intangible. We certainly can't predict the future, but it's also encouraging when we see the support, especially in the state of Florida, that the community and government do have for supporting the new initiatives with emergency services, whether it's a mental health program or new fire station. There seems to be a lot of understanding of how critically important these things are for emergency services. So I appreciate you touching on that. Mm-hmm. Chief, in terms of the other aspects of the fire station design, one of them that I find interesting is sleeping quarters. So I'm not sure how prevalent this is, but there is a shift from the communal bunk room to more of like individual sleeping quarters. How did you incorporate that design, and what features do you have in terms of like audio and lighting and alerting people when there is a call that they need to be dispatched to?
Yeah, a lot. This goes along with when we look at the three pillars, right? We talked about mental health and wellness and physical health and wellness. Well, sleep deprivation ties into both of those pillars. And one of the things that we look to do is try to minimize the impact of our firefighters being woken up in the middle of the night in such a harsh manner, right? We know that the tones are going to go off, and we know that within 8 minutes, we're going to be inside of a structure fire. We know that that's going to happen. What we're looking to do is as individuals are woken up from sleep, we don't want their heart rate to jump and then level out. We want to see more of a curve where we can get their heart rate up within that period of time. So some of the things we looked at doing, we do have the individual bunk rooms and same thing with bathrooms. We don't even have communal bathrooms anymore. We have no more communal lockers. We want to respect individuals' privacy and space. So we've definitely made it a point to isolate each bunk room. Within each bunk room, we use a dispatching solution. It's called Locution. I don't know if you're familiar. They're one of many companies, but Locution is the company that we utilize for our tone out dispatch and notification systems. So we have LED lighting that exists within every bunk room. So as the tones are coming on, you have a red LED light that comes on in your room. That LED light alone coming on will, for me, opens my eyes because I now have a light coming on in the room, but it's done in a very gentle manner.
Okay.
Then the speakers within the room have a low rumble to them, almost sounds like thunder. And then we have these very soft escalating tones that come across. So it kind of wakes you up in a better way than when I started and bells were clanging and you jumped up and your heart rate is running through the roof, right?
Yeah.
So we looked at incorporating all of those things. We looked at some other things too. There's some programs or software out there where they wear these watches like Apple watches, and when they get a call, it vibrates on their wrist. There's a lot of things that are out there. So for a department that might not be able to do all of this, they do have a scenario where firefighters, when they go in their bunk room, they put this wristband on, and as the tones hit, it vibrates before the tones go off, waking them up so they're not woken up in a shock or a panic. One of the other things we did is we isolated the tones within each room. So there is a master console that the battalion chief or the shift captain will assign bunks to individuals on different units. So if one of our rescue units has to go out and the engine does it, why wake up the engine if the rescue's got a call?
Right.
And vice versa, right? We got a fire alarm, the engine's got to roll out, the rescue doesn't. Why wake everybody up in the station? So we've identified what unit sleeps in one bunk, and when they get a tone out, they are the only ones toned out. The other crews don't hear that. That has been extremely beneficial until, firefighters can be firefighters, right? So they take the EMS captain and they assign him to every bunk, so he has to wake up on every call. It's we had to put a passcode on that one. Firefighters are going to be firefighters, right? One of the other things that was always heartburn or an issue for me is temperature, climate. Some people love it ice cold. Some people love it warm. You talk about sleep deprivation. You talk about having comfortable sleep while you can sleep. Normally, it should be done in an environment that you tend to favor. So we actually have in the bunk rooms, we actually have louvers at each AC vent where if you want it hotter, you can, through a remote on the wall, you can actually make it warmer in the room. And really what it does is it basically closes off the louver.
Okay.
If you like it ice cold, it opens the louvers up all the way. So our air conditioning stays at 70 degrees, but you can get it as warm as 78 degrees in your bunk room by simply just closing off the louvers. Other people like them wide open. That has, the feedback on that has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Volume controls within each bunk room. When I was on a truck, the chief officer decided what the overall volume was going to be for the station as a whole. We allow our individuals to control their own volume. However, with great power comes great responsibility. Don't miss that call, but with a couple of different methods of alerting, with the lights, with the rumble, with the tones. We even have notification that comes across our cell phone for our calls that come in. All of that has really made a difference as it relates to the quality of sleep our firefighters are getting when they can sleep.
That is huge. And as you were speaking, I was kind of reflecting back on the bunk room that we slept in, where I think the favorite temperature was 64 degrees for most people, but then you'd have the guy who had to bring his electric blanket in so he could be comfortable. So you tried to, you were dealing with, there was no one size fits all for that. And so I love the fact that you got everybody can customize their temperature, their volume level, and their sleep conditions. That's huge.
Yeah.
So Chief,
and again, just to touch on that a little bit more, some of those things are not very expensive. You can go on Amazon right now and you can find those AC louvers at $29.99 per louver, so there are, again, a lot of things. And I want to, stress this to everyone that's listening. Please don't think that this is for the rich and wealthy. Riviera Beach is not a very wealthy city. We do have Singer Island, but we're a typical community in South Florida that has figured out a way to do things very cost effectively through some very unique design features and elements. So I don't want anybody to be scared off on, oh, well, that's going to be too expensive. We can't do that. There's a lot that can be done.
I remember you speaking about this, and I think it's also really pertinent, and that's the flooring and HVAC design to keep the building ventilated in a way that's, promoting wellness. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we even took design, and this may seem silly to some, but when we looked at design, we looked at everything. One of the things we looked at is the exhaust on our trucks. Which way does the exhaust point? Where are we going to draw our air from, and where's our living quarters going to be? So we have no living quarters on the exhaust side, what we refer to as the exhaust side of the station. Every one of your vehicles, at least in our department, the exhaust comes off the passenger side. So we end up, even if it's the stack on the rescue truck, it comes out on the passenger side. So in our station, as you're pulling in on the right-hand side, that's where the air is drawn towards. And then on the other side is our living area. And one of the things that we tried to do was look at not only the health and wellness, but we also want to be mindful of cost, value engineering. What are some of the things we can do to make this station last longer, be cleaner? And one of the things we came up with is absolutely, it goes without saying in our department now that we don't have carpet in any one of our stations. We don't have tile with grout lines in any one of our stations. Everything we do is either an epoxy flooring, if it's a wet area, or polished concrete with obviously a grip on it. And there's some beautiful textures that you can, and colors that you can do. Yeah. It's actually cheaper in some cases. And I'll never replace a floor again. Once a year, we strip it down. It's a non-porous surface. It's easily cleaned. I remember going into our communal bunk room, and it was carpeted. And my God, what was living in that carpet, what were we thinking, right? This is that common sense approach. What were we thinking? But non-porous surfaces, and a lot of that came from COVID as well, right? All of our countertops are stainless steel. Our kitchen table is a stainless steel kitchen table. Our countertops in the kitchens, all stainless steel. Our cabinetry is all metal. It's actually an aluminum type of material where it's easily wiped down, disinfected, sanitized. So that is huge when it comes to the stations. Talk about another must-have. I would include that into the must-have. You must have cleanable, non-porous surfaces. Really make a big difference.
Yeah, well, that's so important. And you mentioned COVID and what a game changer that was in terms of how we did business. How did that come into play with your station design?
So as we were designing the station, one of the things that we had realized was we were coming, and I'm going beginning of COVID, right? the world's coming to an end, everybody's going to die, zombie apocalypse. We really didn't know what it was, how contagious it was, how was it transmitted, how easily. So our crews were actually performing decontamination when they ran what we had considered a known or a positive COVID. We would actually have them come back. There was a full disinfecting of the back of the rescue truck. Our crews would strip down almost like a hazmat incident. You would strip your clothing outside. We had the big showers that you would pull, rinse off. It was quite the ordeal. And I said, okay, this is interesting. How can we streamline in this station design, because we still didn't know what COVID was going to be, to create this path or this decon area where if our crews are coming back from a call like this, they can decon without contaminating the rest of the station. So that really drove that decon room to what it is today, in addition to all of our bathrooms. You don't touch the sink, you don't touch the toilet, you don't touch the soap dispenser, you don't touch the paper towel dispenser. All you got to do is touch the business end of whatever it is you're doing, and we're not worried about those touch surfaces, right? That's what got us in trouble. Us personally in Riviera Beach during COVID, we lost at one time nearly 50% of our department was out on COVID leave. And a lot of that was door handles, faucets, sinks, cross-contamination. So we learned from it. COVID is now gone, but the decon room works great when we come back from structure fires. If it's a bio call, works great. Or what is the next COVID, right? What's the next thing that may require this formal decontamination before you actually go into your living quarters? One of the other things that came about is when we were going through COVID, we were dealing with, it was testing sites first, then we did vaccination sites, right? We were all running our pods, and we actually had one of our fire stations at one time was a drive-through site where you would drive through and everything that we all did. What we look to do is incorporating that and our community risk reduction plan. We have a clinic inside the lobby of each one of our fire stations for wellness checks, for future vaccinations, for future testing. Traditionally, somebody comes in the firehouse and says, hey, I need my blood pressure checked or my heart's racing. We sit them on a chair in the lobby, or we walk them to the apparatus bay and put them in a truck. No, we have now and I say a clinic, it's one room with a doctor's bed in it, a faucet and some cabinets and its own bathroom, right? But it has paid dividends. We've actually partnered with Walgreens on doing flu shots. So we can offer flu shots now, and we have individuals coming to the station, and we have some nurse practitioners that are coming in. So it served many masters, but its idea was, man, if we got to do these vaccinations long-term, because we didn't know, right? You had to get vaccinated. It was only good for so long every year. This was going to be a permanent solution to what could have been a long-term problem.
I want to touch on something that I found fascinating too, because we did talk about individual bunk rooms, and that could be a, easy way for someone to isolate, maybe just withdraw and not, hang out with the shift. How did you address that part of like the social aspect of being in the firehouse and making it more, I'd say fun and social rather than a place where you can isolate?
Absolutely. Huge problem in our industry today. Phones, a younger generation who really is in there. I would go by stations and there's 5 firefighters sitting at a kitchen table, and for 15 minutes, nobody has said a word to each other. Mm-hmm. They're literally just immersed in their phones, to the point where a lot of the firefighters were going off into the bunk room. You wouldn't see them unless a call came in. Mm-hmm. So some of the things that we tried to do is we created a wellness room. That's one of the things that we've done, where if a firefighter does want to isolate, or they do just want some time to themselves. We have a wellness room where they can enter the wellness room. There's no talking or phones allowed in the room. Somebody may just want to read. Somebody just may want to decompress a bit. But what we don't allow is we don't allow them to go into their bunk rooms unless it's after 4:30 or extenuating circumstances where the officer approves it. That has helped out quite a bit for those individuals that do need that alone time. But some of the other things we did, and I caught a lot of heat over this, but now that it is all passed, it has actually now become a thing. One was our pickleball court, and the second was our pool table, and the third was our ping pong table. I catch a beating over it. But why are we not allowed to exercise or recreate when we spend 1/3 of our lives there? We're allowed to work out and run calls, and maybe we can just socialize a little bit and talk to each other. And hey, what are you doing on vacation? What are you doing for Thanksgiving? And we have found that our first of all, the pickleball thing is huge. We got stations in surrounding departments from other municipalities that are looking to come over, and really what we've seen is this reemergence of camaraderie. Guys are out there, the girls are out there, the crews are laughing. You'll even have some rescue trucks that'll say, hey, we'll go ahead and cover while you all play your game. And so they'll cover for another zone. And, we've seen a tremendous increase in our crews being able to communicate better. Their decision-making has gotten better, working with each other, laughing with each other. Even guys who really didn't get along too much have now found some commonality in pickleball. And, it's really made all the difference in the world, I would have to say. And I know of everything that we've done in our stations, by far, if you asked our firefighters, what's number one? It's the pickleball court. We even have PD trying to come over and get in a couple games now and again. Right. But that social aspect, creating an environment where they can socialize, they can recreate, and listen, they're exercising at the same time. If I wasn't letting them do that, I'd be watching them on the recliner, right? At 6, 7, 8 at night. Yep. They're playing pickleball till 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night sometimes, in between calls, coming back, picking up where they left off. Tremendous addition to our fire stations, and really made a definite, immediate impact to the morale and camaraderie in our department.
I want to have you touch on a couple other quick things that maybe are unique. And one of them is ways people can catch a couple of winks, maybe not in the bunk room, but just like if they want to take a nap. And I know one of your stations, you did some like homage to the department's history. So can you talk about these unique features that you've also incorporated?
Yeah. So one of the things that I had always, and I think, I don't want to say always, but as you go through your career, certain things impact you differently. When you're a firefighter, moving up through officer, battalion chief, as a chief officer, one of the things that really started to bother me a bit was we have firefighters that will work overtime, as any department does. So they work 24 hours. And then they stay for another 24 hours. And we put them, they've been up all night. They've run 18 calls. And the next day, I'm going to put them behind the wheel of a $1.2 million truck, speeding down the road in our community with little to no sleep. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. How are we going to attack this challenge? I'm not letting them go to the bunk room and go to sleep. That's a non-negotiable. I just don't believe in that isolation, bunk room. And even if you take that nap, most people know when you take a nap and you wake up, sometimes you feel worse than you did when you took the nap.
Yep.
So we started our research, and one of the things that kept popping up was Google and their nap pods. We found a company called Metro Nap Pods. I saw them at one of the station design conferences. They were doing some preliminary work in Atlanta. They had already done a lot of different government work, and they have these, Google pods. You lay in it, zero gravity chair. It's got the big dome that goes out in front of you, and it uses audio stimulation to help you get rest. So our firefighters now have the latitude. And the beauty about it is this nap pod or this nap cycle is about 25 to 30 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And what it does is, and obviously we have our protocols in place, and you still got to run calls. And, there is no, hey, I'm going to take a nap and you're off the porch for 30 minutes. But traditionally, if we had a guy on overtime and crews know it, they'll send him up there and say, hey, man, go hit the pod. And he'll go up there and you put the headphones on, first 5 minutes of audio, and there's various settings of audio, will put you into a restful state. The next 10 minutes to 15 minutes of audio, depending on your settings, keeps you in that restful state, but doesn't allow you to go into REM sleep. And then the last 5 minutes slowly brings you out of that sleep state and wakes you back up. And I have to tell you, I thought it was smoke and mirrors when I first saw it. But if you try it, you sit up after that 20 to 25 minutes. And I almost had to laugh out loud because I felt really good. It was like, man, that's a great power nap. And that's what we're talking about, right? A power nap. Just something so that you can recharge those batteries, get you through the rest of that morning, the afternoon. Most of our firefighters don't use it during their regular course of duty. What we've seen is the overtime individuals, we actually have a lot of firefighters who will stay beyond their shift, up all night, 8 after midnight, rent 22 all shift, you're exhausted. But many of our firefighters might have a 2-hour commute to get home. Right. Or got to go pick up their kids from school. And then but they're exhausted. When they get off duty, they'll take that 20 to 30 minute power nap to recharge their battery, to get home, to get the kid, to get set up, to do the things that they need to do. Because we did have firefighters in the past that have talked about, they're dozing off on the way home. Huge.
Huge, yes.
It's been big. Talk about some of the other elements. Station 88, when it was being built, was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So that is dedicated. It is actually recognized as a national memorial for 9/11. We were able to get it recognized as such, and a lot of tremendous artwork in the station. And then Station 87, which houses our emergency operations center on the second floor. That's more of a historical, an homage to those that have paved the way before us, all of our retirees, and just a lot of old equipment and cool stuff. It's the cool stuff. So yeah, a lot of thought went into this, from the art to the thickness of the slab that our apparatus drive on. And we haven't even talked about the construction element. We're really just talking about the health and wellness. There's a whole nother podcast on just the construction element and some of the unique things that were done as it relates to the structure itself, hurricanes, threats to public safety. We've addressed some of those issues with this station. So a lot of thought went into these.
You're right. It would be a whole other podcast, things we haven't even touched on. One thing that I would like to touch on is training. Is that baked into the design as well? Different features and training possibilities in terms of what you can do in the fire station?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, at Station 88, we actually had a four-story tower built behind the station. It's not a live burn tower, but we've done some, and again, it's unique things. We have PVC piping running through multiple floors. We use theater smoke, but we can cap and uncap different pipes on different floors so we can get the effects that we want. We do a lot of our aerial ops because we have a balcony built off of it. There was areas for rappelling. There are areas for hoisting. We have a simulated garage for a garage fire, multiple sprinkler heads that were built in there so we could practice, sprinkler head work on whether it's a pendant or side mount or, upright, what have you. So yes, that was another critical element that had to be addressed is how are we going to be able to use this to train as well? Not to mention just the physical training, but what we're dealing with right now is the majority of our stuff is all done on computer. So we actually have, I don't want to call it a computer lab. We call it our report writing room or, we have 8 or 10 computers that are out. We utilize a software system called Target Solutions that does some different modules for training for licensure. So we had to address it on both the physical and digital end when it came to training.
So many questions, but I'll have to limit it to one. What do you see, if you looked in your crystal ball, as the next or the future of fire station design? Like what's on the horizon that maybe you would incorporate in your next build when you get to it?
One of the things that I was really looking into, and this goes back to, I do foresee a day where you walk into a vestibule, you hold your arms out, this gas comes out, this UV light comes out, and you walk in and you're completely disinfected, right? We were looking at that with some UV lighting. We were actually working on a system to have UV lighting embedded in our warm zone. So yeah, it's really hard to visualize, but our red zone is the apparatus bay. Your yellow zone or warm zone are those hallways and decon areas that lead into the green zone. But in those yellow zones, we were actually going to have ultraviolet light put in the floor. So as you walked in and stood over it with your boots, you would have to stand there for 3 to 5 seconds, and 99% of all virus or bacteria carried on your boots would be killed instantly. Cost benefit didn't weigh out there, but I do envision, and we're seeing it with rescue trucks now, where they have UV lighting they're using to decon the inside of the rescue trucks. I can foresee something like that, but more importantly, even with our station and not to get off the health and wellness end of it, the electrical capacity of our fire station, we're only using 20% of the electrical capacity of our fire station. I know there's going to be an EV engine. I know there's going to be our inspectors, our battalion chief. I know it's coming. So some of those elements we've actually, and I know it may sound stupid, we have an area on the roof that we can turn into a future drone pad to land or deploy drones from the top of our station. I foresee a call coming in, the drone takes off out ahead of you, and while you're in a route, you got an aerial 360 view of that property as you're coming to it. Brush fire, structure fire, what have you.
If you had to sum it up, if let's say you were consulting, giving another chief advice on building a new fire station, what would you tell them? What do you think they should know going into this kind of a huge undertaking?
I would definitely, tell them to slow down. Slow down, think about what you want before you build it. What's important to you? What's important to me for my firefighters may not be the same for others. But I think to really sit down and brainstorm and say, okay, when we build this station, what are our expectations going to be of this station. If it's simply to just house individuals, then that is what it is. But if it's to provide them with an environment that's, safe, clean, then we have to put a little bit of thought into it. Use a common sense approach. You'll talk about that in the takeaways. You don't have to have these fancy direct capture systems that are $83,000 per truck and tracks it. How about just a fan, an exhaust fan that's sucking the air? Something is better than nothing. So you really need to look at what are your goals? What are some of the things that are impacting your station and your firefighters? And there's a solution. You just got to be willing to want to look for it and find it.
Great. Thank you for that answer. And as we wrap up, I want to share 3 tactical takeaways. There be actionable items that firefighters or chiefs, administrators can use to enhance their health, performance, and leadership. What do you have for us?
So we have, use a common sense approach, right? We want to make sure that bunkered ice machines in the apparatus bay. Stop it. What are we doing? I've personally have dumped a cup into an ice machine in an apparatus bay, get a call, leave, come back, the ice is melted and there's a sheen of fuel on the top of my glass because those coils are just pulling that diesel fuel. Same thing with our SCBA fill units. We used to fill our SCBAs in the apparatus bay as trucks are going by. That's our air. That's our air. Be accountable. Be accountable to what it is you say you're gonna do. One of the things that's bothered me about segments of the fire service is we talk a really good game. Firefighter health and wellness, cancer prevention, suicide prevention, but then you look around and say, what have we done? What have you done? Talked about it? Went to a couple conferences? I don't know. Be accountable. If you say that that's important to you, let it be. Be accountable to your firefighters. They are entrusting in you to lead them, guide them, protect them, and keep them safe. Not just out in the field, right? At their stations. They're too young to know any better. We know better. We've spent 25 years. An 18-year-old coming in as a newbie is not talking about air exhaust ventilation. He doesn't care where the ice comes from. It's our job to make sure we protect them from themselves. And one of the things I would also, just another bit of advice, make it firefighter proof. Our exhaust systems and a lot of what we're doing are all automatic systems. Nobody's got to remember to flip a switch. Nobody's got to remember to turn a knob. Our bay doors open, fans come on, magic happens, right? And all of this is very easily automated. So be accountable to the things that you say you stand for and accountable to the firefighters that you've been sworn to protect. Do something, right? No one of these things is the game changer. But if we make a bunch of small changes, when you add all of those up, it will make a big difference. Do something rather than just talking about it, what we should do, I don't care what it is. If you do something, you're moving in the right direction.
Great. So as we wind up here, Chief, where can people find you if you want to share any website, social media, any kind of links like that?
Listen, the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm available to any and all. What I do out of passion for the industry that we have. You can reach me at jcurd, that's JCURD, at rivierabeach.org. That is my email address. Plans to stations, studies, data, statistics, different things. Coming back from the conference that you were at, I was probably inundated with 100 emails, but you know what? It took me 2 weeks. but I got through every one of them to answer every question. If you just want to have a conversation, please feel free, email me. We could set up a time to talk. If I could give you any advice, I'm working right now with a couple of departments down south where they're asking me to just take a look at our floor plan. Take a look at the programming. Are we missing anything? And absolutely, if I can do anything to make this industry better when I leave than when I found it, I'll consider that a win.
Absolutely. Well, I have to salute you for the amazing work you have done and your willingness to help pay that forward and help others who are pursuing the same, wanting to build a great fire station, great facilities for their department. So, Chief, thank you so much for spending this time. I think it's going to be amazing content to put out there and probably will influence, hopefully a positive influence on other people that are embarking on the same project. So we appreciate you spending this time with us.
Thank you, Dave, and I appreciate your platform for help getting that message out there.
Thank you for watching Igniting the Shift Within. Join us next time to hear more game changers who are shaping our profession. You can check out our website, podpage.com/igniting. Make sure you like and follow Firefighter Nation on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and go to their website, firefighternation.com. Till the next time, stay safe, stay connected, keep igniting the shift within.
There are two things firefighters dislike: the way things are and change.
Sometimes traditional ways clash with the need for change.
That's where we come in.
Slicing through the noise with insights that matter.
Welcome to Igniting the Shift Within.
Your launch pad to revolutionize the way you think and work and lead.